Why you know nothing. Updated 30th of July 2012. If you've proceeded through this section of the website as I requested earlier, you now know that the entire universe consists of energy. And so do you. And as this point, everything's made up of atoms. Atoms, the universe, the holographic universe you actually live in, is neither round nor flat nor concave nor any of that. It's only what you're seeing. It's only what your senses are. It's a light and frequency balance of to make the holographic existence of what you think is material reality. Bottom line, it's all energy. And if we had the key to the frequencies of that, every living thing, everything in existence, not just what we consider living, has a frequency, which makes it the thing that it is. Without that specific frequency holding those molecules together in that form, then that object would disperse and either cease to be or transmute into something else. Okay, so therefore, shown you on the EMFs page, and I didn't go through all this, but the father of all energy science is Nikola Tesla, and a man so far ahead of his time that his contemporaries labeled him a madman because they couldn't understand his work. Tesla designed energy systems that could be used as weapons, excuse me, and to control weather. He also built a tower that could transmit free energy from Earth's atmosphere through the air without wires and received in the homes of the world with cheap antennas. How is this possible? By using phase conjugate waves. Tesla was the discoverer of the phase conjugate wave, explained further down this page. His financial backer at the time was the international banker J.P. Morgan, and when Tesla told Morgan that his power couldn't be monetized through electricity meters, Morgan withdrew his funding and the technology was never completed. Mr. Morgan didn't want you to have anything which he could make the billions, and the papers and plans for this technology were removed, stolen by U.S. intelligence from Tesla's laboratory immediately after his death in 1943. We have remained under lock and key in the U.S. government filing cabinet ever since. Or, other than we know they're using it themselves. So, nevertheless, I would not go off on that tangent, right? The U.S. government didn't want you to have anything, which they couldn't make billions, I guess. So, but as you know, the Iranian energy scientist named Mehran Tavakkali Keshi, oh yeah, Kesh, he's been interviewed by Project Camelot, in case anybody wants to know. You can go look on Carrie's site. She interviewed him a couple times, I think. Anyway, is about to change all that. And he's been very clever indeed, because there's no point in assassinating him now. Before announcing his technology, he quietly sent his blueprints to all the top energy scientists in the world, which of course a lot of them have been killed too. I digress though. Then registered his patents in the patent office of every nation on the planet. Okay, in 1898, Nikola Tesla reported to the American Electrotherapeutic Association that energy could be used therapeutically for human health. He doesn't appear to have created any devices to do this, but remember that his papers and lab equipment were stolen. Okay, so the gift of mental power comes from God, the divine being, and if we concentrate our minds on that truth, we become in tune with this great power. That's a quote from Nikola Tesla. Okay, think of that. The gift of mental power comes from God, the divine being. And if we concentrate our minds on that truth, then we become in tune with it. Because this is what you're seeking, as I said in the last video. What you seek, you will find. Just like the book tells you to. Seek me and you will find. But you have to be seeking. You have to be looking. You have to be trying to observe. So this video here is cancer is an electrical phenomenon. interview with Harry Eckler, explaining the theories and practice of energy medicine stretching back to 800 BC, as well as science giants whose work contributed to his understanding and development. Okay, and you can check that out. Like I said, I'll put all the links in. Royal Raymond Rife, this is what we're really trying to get to here. I'll just deal with two of those science here. Raymond Rife, okay. He was an American scientist, brilliant American scientist, who was born in 1888 and died in 1971. After studying at Johns Hopkins, Rife developed technology which is still commonly used today in the fields of optics, electronics, radiochemistry, biochemistry, ballistics, and aviation. He received 14 major awards and honors and was given an honorary doctorate by the University of Heidelberg. During the 66 years that Rife spent designing and building medical instruments, he worked for Zeiss Optics, the U.S. government, and several private benefactors. By 1920, Rife had finished building the world's first virus microscope and was the first man to identify the human cancer virus. By 1933, he had constructed the incredibly complex universal microscope, which had nearly 6,000 different parts and was capable of magnifying objects 60,000 times their normal size. With this amazing microscope, Rife became the first human being to actually see a live virus, and until quite recently, the universal microscope was the only one which was able to view live viruses. Through his tireless work, Rife discovered that Louis Pasteur's germ theory was completely wrong. He was able to show through his microscope that germs, just like insects, change their forms as they progress through life. He called this process pleomorphism. As with Tesla, Rife's contemporaries were so far behind him that they were unable to understand his technology. Rife painstakingly identified the individual spectroscopic signature of each microbe. Using a split spectroscope, then he slowly rotated block quartz prisms to focus light of a single wavelength onto the microorganism he was examining. This wavelength was selected because it resonated with the spectroscopic signature frequency of the microbe. So it was the same frequency as the microbe was. No two types of molecule had the same electromagnetic oscillations or energy signature. No, just like none of us have the same fingerprints, etc. No two types of molecules resonate the same. The resonance amplifies light in the same way the two ocean waves intensify each other when they merge. The result of using a resonant wavelength is that microorganisms, which are invisible in white light, suddenly become visible in a flash of light when they are exposed to the color frequency that resonates with their own spectroscopic signature. Rife was thus able to see these otherwise invisible organisms and watch them actively invading tissues, cultures. His discovery enabled him to view organisms that no one else could see with the ordinary microscopes. Rife then realized that he could use the same resonance principle to kill these microorganisms. By increasing the intensity of a frequency which resonated naturally with these microbes, Rife increased their natural oscillations until they distorted and disintegrated from structural stresses. Rife called this frequency the mortal oscillatory rate, or MOR, and it did no harm whatsoever to the surrounding tissues. This principle can be illustrated by using an intense musical note to shatter a wine glass. The molecules of the glass are already oscillating at some harmonic multiple of that musical note. They are in resonance with it. Because everything else has a different resonant frequency, nothing but the glass is destroyed. There are literally hundreds of trillions of different resonance frequencies, and every species and molecule has its very own. It took Rife many years, working 48 hours at a time, until he discovered the frequencies which specifically destroyed herpes, polio, spinal meningitis, tetanus, influenza, and an immense number of other dangerous disease organisms. In 1934, the University of Southern California appointed a special medical research committee to bring terminal cancer patients from Pasadena County Hospital to Rife's San Diego laboratory and clinic for treatment. The team included doctors and pathologists assigned to examine the patients, if still alive, in 90 days. After the 90 days of treatment, the committee concluded that 86.5% of the patients had been completely cured. The treatment was then adjusted, and the remaining 13.5% of the patients also responded within the next 4 weeks. The total recovery rate using Rife's technology was 100%. And here's a actual picture of the Evening Tribune from May 8th, May 6th, 1938, I think it says. Anyway, here's this picture of him with his apparatus. Dread disease germs destroyed by Ray's claim of SD scientists. Cancer blow scene, whatever. So on November 20th, 1931, 44, America's most respectable medical authorities honored Royal Rife with a banquet billed at the end of all diseases. At the Pasadena estate of Dr. Milbank Johnson. But by 1939, almost all of these distinguished doctors and scientists were denying that they had ever met Rife. What happened to make so many brilliant men have complete memory lapses? Here's a picture of the dinner party. It seems that news of Rife's miracles with terminal patients had reached other ears. What would happen if you discovered a cure for everything? You are now about to find out. At first, a token attempt was made to buy out Rife. Morris Fishbein, who had acquired an entire stock of the American Medical Association by 1934, sent an attorney to Rife with an offer you can't refuse. Well, Rife refused. We may never know the exact terms of this offer, but we do know the terms of the offer Fishbein made to Harry Hoxsey, for control of his herbal cancer remedy. Fishbein's associates would receive all profits for 9 years, and Hoxsey would receive nothing. And then, if they were satisfied that it worked, Hoxsey would begin to receive 10% of the profits. Hoxsey decided that he would rather continue to make all the profits himself. When Hoxsey turned Fishbein down, Fishbein used his immensely powerful political connections to have Hoxsey arrested 125 times in a period of 16 months. Talk about some harassment, huh? The charges, based on a practice without a license, were always thrown out of court, but the harassment drove Hoxsey crazy. But Fishbein must have realized that his strategy would backfire with Rife. First, Rife could not be arrested like Hoxsey for practicing without a license. A trial on trumped-up charges would mean the testimony supporting Rife would be introduced by prominent medical authorities working with Rife, and the defense would undoubtedly take the opportunity to introduce evidence such as the 1934 medical study done with USC. The last thing in the world that the pharmaceutical industry wanted was a public trial about a painless therapy that cured 100% of the terminal cancer patients and cost nothing to use but a little electricity. It might give people a very dangerous idea that they didn't need drugs. And Rife had spent decades accumulating meticulous evidence of his work, including film and stop-motion photographs. No different tactics were needed. The first incident was a gradual theft of components, photographs, film, and written records from Rife's lab. The culprit was never caught. Then, while Rife struggled to reproduce his missing data in a day when the photocopies and computers were not available, someone vandalized his precious virus microscopes. Pieces of the 5,682-piece universal microscope were stolen. Earlier, an arson fire destroyed multi-million-dollar Burnett lab in New Jersey, just as the scientists were preparing to announce confirmation of Rife's work. But the final blow came later when police illegally confiscated the remainder of Rife's 50 years of research. Then in 1939, agents of a family which controlled the drug industry, we know who they are, don't we, assisted Philip Harland in a frivolous lawsuit against his own partners in the Beam Ray Corporation. This was the only manufacturing company in Rife's frequency that was making the frequency instruments. Rife was not a partner. Hoyland lost, but his assisted legal assault had the desired effect. The company was bankrupt by legal expenses. And during the Great Depression, this meant the commercial production of Rife's frequency instruments ceased completely. And remember that a universal cure would mean to hospitals and research foundations. Doctors who tried to defend Rife lost their foundation grants and hospital privileges. Big money was spent to make sure that no doctors who'd seen Rife's therapy that they would forget what they saw, etc. It goes on here. So this is a very long, and you can come and read the rest of it yourself if you want to know more about the story.